intention. Today, there is an eerie sense that the youth are leaving the church. It's time to face up to the reality and take significant steps to reclaim our lost youth. As we look ahead to the future, our vision for Seventh-day Adventist Youth Ministry is challenging and yet very promising. We have nothing to fear for the future, except as well as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us and his teaching in our past, youth ministry history. Testimonies to Ministers by Ellen G. White, page 31. Youth ministry can be a huge blessing to the church and society, a catalyst for change and a refuge fortress for young people who are looking for some help other than the dying word. Let us pray. We'll now have opening prayer by Brother Joshua Sanka.
Blessed Sabbath, everyone, and say that our eyes closed. Dear God, loving Father, Lord, I thank you for this wonderful evening, for bringing each and every one of us here safely, Lord. Lord, guide us and protect us, and may this evening proceedings do our bodies good spiritually. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
At this time, we will have our song service followed by our scripture reading for this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Our song service will turn to hymn 428. There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar. There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar. For the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on the beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. We shall sing on that beautiful shore. The melodious songs of the blessed, and our spirit shall sorrow no more. Not a sigh for the blessing of rest. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on the beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. To our bountiful Father above, we will offer our tribute of praise for the glorious gift of His love and the blessings that hallow our days. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on the beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In 434:30, oh, there'll be joy when the work is done, joy when the reapers gather home. 430, joy by and by. Oh, there'll be joy when the work is done, joy when the reapers gather home, bringing the sheaves that set us up to the new Jerusalem. there'll be joy by and by. Joy, joy, where the joys never die. Joy, joy for the day, joy at night, when the workers gather home. Sweet are the songs that we hope to sing. For the thanks I shall bring, praising forever Christ our King in the New Jerusalem. Joy, joy, there'll be joy by and by. Joy, joy, where the joys never. Joy, joy for the day, joy and night, when the workers gather home. Pure are the joys that await us there. Many the Lord, the mansions fair. Jesus himself doth them prepare in the New Jerusalem. Joy, joy, there'll be joy by and by. Joy, joy, where the joys never. Joy, joy for the day, joy at night, when the workers gather home. Our opening hymn will be hymn 500. Hymn 500. Take time to be holy, speak oft with thy Lord. Take time to be holy, speak oft with thy Lord. Abide in him always, and feed on his word. Make friends of God's children, help those who are weak. Forgetting in nothing, his blessing to seek. Take time to be holy, the world rushes on. Spend this time in secret with Jesus alone. By looking to Jesus, like him thou shalt be. Thy friends in thy conduct his likeness shall see. Take time to be holy, let him be thy guide, and run not before him, whatever betide. In joy or in sorrow, still follow the Lord, and looking to Jesus, still trust in his word. Take time to be holy, keep calm in thy soul. Each thought and each motive beneath his control. Thus led by his spirit to fountains of love. Thou soon shalt be fitted for service above.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Sabbath. Our scripture reading is taken from Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee wherever thou shalt go. Go us.
Our next scripture reading will be taken from Romans 12, verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but ye be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect.
Our third scripture reading is taken from Romans 8, verse 20. And it says, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called, that to those who are called according to his purpose.
Okay, is MIT Kayla the big here?
I believe she may have been bumped off, so I will do the scripture reading. Ecclesiastes 12:1. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them.
Okay, I see she got back in. So MIT Kayla, if you can hear us, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. At this time, we will have our quiz. The instructions are, we will play an audio clip, a video clip, or a description will be given, and you have to guess who the individual is from the Bible. And a hint will be the individuals will be used from the Bible. So.
We're not hearing the clip.
Sister Kayla, would you like me to share screen?
We have a little technical difficulties. Just 1 minute, please.
David.
Yes, the answer is David. David was one of the best known stories in the Bible, is David and Goliath. When this story took place in 1 Samuel 17, David was probably only 17 years old. And in this chapter, we see David as an obedient son, a brave soldier, and above all, a young man who fully trusted God. Our second question will be, she was a young Jewish girl captured by the Syrian captain Naaman. She advised Naaman to see the prophet who will help with his leprosy. She loved the Lord and was willing to tell others of his love and mercy. Who is she?
Esther.
The little maid.
Yes, the little maid. The answer is the little maid. There's a wonderful story in 2 Kings 5 about Naaman being healed by leprosy by God. Healed of leprosy by God. One of the minor characters in the story is a little slave girl of whom we know almost nothing. However, the one thing we know about her is that she was concerned for the people around her that they would know about the power of God. She displayed qualities of selflessness when she learned that her master Naaman had leprosy. She would only tell him about God's prophet Elisha and how God worked through this man. She encouraged him to go see Elijah. We know nothing else about the young lady, but we know enough to summarize that she loved the Lord and the people God called her to serve. The young girl displayed the qualities of a trustworthy and honest servant. Our third question was, he was the leader of advisors, was a man who believed in God and followed the Lord's command. Who is he? Yes, the answer is Daniel. Daniel was resilient and he had complete trust in God. So the second part of our quiz will be a fill in the blanks. The first text is 1 Timothy 4 and verse 12. So can someone please fill in our blanks? Does anyone want to attempt to fill in our blanks?
I'll
Let's-
share the first one, and two other persons can share the others. So let no one despise you for your youth.
But these are an example in speech, in conduct, in charity, in faith and purity.
Yes, thank you. So 1 Timothy 4 and verse 12 says, let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. Our second text will be Ecclesiastes 11 and verse 9.
Okay, so it's the first two is rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth.
Walk in the ways of thine heart, and the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment.
Yes, that is correct. So Ecclesiastes 11 and verse 9 says, rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. And that is the end of our quiz. Thank you for participating.
Continuing our reading. The challenges demand a degree of openness and risk taken not seen in the church for years. Looking into the future of Seventh-day Adventist youth ministry, we need to be inspired by the past to shape a stronger future ministry for our youth. The same vision that inspired Henry Fenner, 17, and Luther Warren, 14, in 1879, must continue to guide youth ministry in the future. Our challenge now is to build on what these pioneers started to meet the needs of today and tomorrow's generations. The approaches may be different, but the biblical principles should never be compromised, and the main reasons for having youth ministry in the Seventh-day Adventist Church must always remain the same. Youth ministry today in some quarters of the church face a great shakeup. Some churches have questioned the need and purpose for youth ministry. Some churches have completely done away with it or made some radical changes to accommodate the few youths who do not like to be challenged. Churches have turned away youth ministry from a program to a babysit youth in the church.
But it should be remembered that the future belongs to our youth. It is time for the elderly to step aside with our deepest gratitude and thanks. We must keep on asking ourselves, how might our youth organize for the future while handing on the best of the past? Let us look at 3 important points. Importance of youth ministry. If the church believes in its youth and that they are the church today and tomorrow, then a top priority in how we lead senior youth, Pathfinder, and Adventurer ministries must be seen. We must walk the talk. Youth directors should be given only one assignment of taking care of the youth. Youth leaders at all levels will need to be given maximum support for the administrators. The youth department should not be an appendix to other assignments. Professional youth leaders must be provided to serve as spiritual youth leaders. Second point, incarnational ministry. As we face the future, young people will be fully secularized. Personal experiences will be their sole measure of reality. They will all have little sense of what's holy, but its absence will drive them towards what's spiritual. Adventist youth ministers who successfully reach these kids will be trustworthy and accepting. And they must prove these graces in concrete, everyday experiences. Communicating the gospel will mean risking oneself, one's dignity, and one's comfort. You will have to let go of some familiar faith symbols and traditions and use the youth symbols. Issues, challenges, and schedules to reach to them. But in the midst of it, Jesus Christ, his story, his life, and his work must continue as your ministry's focal point. Salvation and service will continue to be the motivating force in the youth ministry. No compromise. Our third point, relational ministry. Young people will live in a world which does not trust any relationship. Most of the youth will be psychological orphans. In their short life, they would have seen their parents divorcing and living with single parents. These will need caring, listening, and stable people and communities to help ease their adoption into God's family. Youth Alive, Youth to Youth ministry will be the most important vehicle that helps youth stick with the church as they mature. Youth who model positive values, attitudes, and behaviors will create a counterculture community for their spiritually hungry peers. Meanwhile, adult faith mentors will be more important than ever. When youth go to youth group, they must receive significant contact with adults. Every church, you will need to appoint mentors for young people growing up in a world of no guidance. Youth ministry will be the father and mother of these youth.
This evening, our panel is made up of some very sought after persons who we will take with us through our reasoning on why youths are leaving the church. We have with us Brother Gideon Sandbryce, who is our former youth director of the South Caribbean Conference, Sister Kathian Allen, who is the singles ministry leader at her church, Sister Usha Ramlakan, who is from the Central Youth Advisory Leader from Pioneer SDA Church, Sister Aisha Graham, who is from the Pioneer SDA Church, and she's their adventurer leader, Brother Kendall George, who is the head AY leader at the Captiville SDA Church, Sister Karen, who is the South Advisory Leader, Brother Gideon Sandbryce. He is a former youth director. Pastor Giovanni John Keith is a youth leader, and Elder Radix Andrews, who is a neutral advisor. So our first question for this evening is the church real or relevant for young people leaving the church? I would like to point this question to Sister Karen.
Oh, it's myself you're talking about there, Kathian, right? Sorry, when I heard Karen. All right. When you all said, is the church real or relevant for young people leaving the church? I wanted to get a deeper understanding of it, because when you think about relevance, is it the reason why that the people are leaving the church is what you would like to know? Before I continue. Hello? Could you?
Hi, sorry. Could you just repeat what you said?
Let us please remember to mute our mics if we are not speaking, please, members. Thank you.
Yes. what I was asking is that the question is worded in a way that I want to just make sure that I'm clear, right? Is the church real or relevant for young people leaving the church? So is it the reason, are you asking, is that the reason why young people are leaving the church?
Yes, I believe the question is worded in a way that they are asking, is the church relevant when young people are leaving the church, and is it one of the real reasons that they are leaving?
Okay, good. So I believe that the church is in a state of relevance. We evolve with time. We have different ministries that facilitate the growth of the youth in different ways. What sometimes happens is, to me, is that why we find our young people leaving the church is that when it comes to youth work, we don't find a way where those that are a little bit senior and those that are younger meet in the middle. We hold to polar ends on both sides of the fences, and we don't grow together, understanding the evolution of change, also holding on to principles. So the church is relevant. I just think that how we deal, the methodologies that we may utilize as mentors, meaning the older heads versus the youths, may be the hiccup that allows persons to leave readily. That's my contribution.
And I would also like to ask Pastor Giovanni John Keith, as a youth leader, what are your thoughts on this question and what Sister Kafian has said?
She made a very valid point that there is a clear rift between what is taught and what we actually want where the youth are concerned. When I read the question, the first thing that came to my mind is an 18-year-old leaving the church is a 12-year-old who is finally old enough to act on that decision. So I would believe that sometime around the 12 to 14 bracket, what the church offers to them is no longer relevant in that context. But in terms of what the church is, the relevance of the church will never diminish or change. But how it personally affects each individual is a bit different. So I'm just looking at the two individuals involved. If it's just the church's relevance we're discussing, then that's unaffected. If it's how relevant the church is to these individuals, then it's a greater thing that we have to look at. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else want to add to that question? Brother St. Bryce?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. When I saw the question, what I got from it, and well, so that will determine whether or not I want to add to what has been said. There are people who are leaving the church, and those who have left or those who are leaving, I'm wondering if you are asking, has the church lost relevance to those persons? Or is the church still relevant to that person who has left? If it's that you're asking, then I could make a contribution to that. But other than that, if the interpretation is what would have gone before, then I don't think, well, not me, I don't need to say anything else. But if we are talking about if the church is relevant, the person has left, but is the church still relevant? Then I think that's a resounding yes. How the church relates to that left person is important. And I do think that we have been trained, and I do think that we have been, in some degrees, mature enough, and I don't think that we have been intentional enough to treat with those who have left to demonstrate the relevance of the church. But is it relevant? Yes. But I do think a number of times the real problem is that the church thinks that those who have left has become irrelevant. but the church is relevant still. That's me.
Very good point. I like that point. And I will take over for a while from MIT Mary while we wait on our next moderator. I also understand before we continue that Sister Josanne and Sister Marion from the Council Region Central are also here. So we'd like to welcome you all. Before we move on to the next question, anyone has anything, Brother Radix?
Yeah, could I make a contribution? In terms of I think fundamentally the church is still relevant. But how we relate to our young people, I think, is where the question lies. One of the reasons I came into the church was because of VBS. I remember one of my earliest memories in the church is making a swizzle stick, which I happily carried home. And I think one of the challenges is that we treat programs like that with a certain level of disregard, almost. The amount we spend on the young people, on the youth, on our children, compared to how much we spend when they have left in order to win them back through crusades and that kind of thing. Do we invest the same amount in our youth or children programs? And using VBS for an example, in some churches you have to pay a certain amount, to get into the VBS. So for me, how do we think about programs that cater to our children? Do we invest sufficiently in them? I can remember going to Bethel Church in Tobago some years ago, and going up to the children's church, I was blown away almost, because the children's church was just as impressive as the adult church. They had a full band, and they were well outfitted. And I think one of the things, children's church is one of the ways that I'm a proponent for children's church, because in that way you can engage the young people, develop them. And so when they transition over to the adult church, they are equipped in a sense to continue in that mode. Very often we have our young people just sitting in the adult church because for whatever reasons we don't think that they're ready to serve. And so they languish in a sense until the point where they no longer connect with church, and so they just buy the time and leave at some point. So I think, yes, the church is relevant in terms of its message, but that relevance has to be translated into how we connect and how we reach out to young people.
Okay, thank you, Brother. Sorry about that. So we move on to question 2, and I'd like to pose this question first to Sister Karen Batiste. Is our church clear in our visual messaging for young people? Is our church clear in visual messaging for young people?
Okay, good evening, everyone. I read this question, but I wasn't too clear as to what we meant by visual messaging. Is it with regards to our social media platforms, stuff like that, or how we appear outside? to the average person.
Okay, I hope you are hearing me because suddenly there is rain in Erin.
Yes,
so
I'm hearing.
I think in putting this question together, what was one of the things is a total package. As Kathy remember last week, we were asking something similar. So are we walking and talking the same talk? So are we showing people the same things? Is our visual,
so our image to the average person
being seen not only social media, by the life we live as well? Are we showing people the right things, young people?
Well, that answer clearly may be a no, as honest as I can be. Because while our church has certain standards and we try our best, especially the leaders really will try their best to uphold these standards, the average person may not necessarily be living that life. We are not walking the walk that we talk. That's basically my point of view. There have been now, the whole topic or theme of this discussion is really why young people leave the church. And there is the notion by the average young person that sometimes, well, you know, we tend to hear this phrase very regular. Too many hypocrites in the church. Now, a hypocrite, basically somebody who would have stand for something at some point in time, but would have deviated from such. So they would find, like, in speaking to young people, some of them are of the opinion that we talk one thing, and there's a certain standard or rule for some persons, while there's a different standard and rule for other persons. So basically, to the average young person, this is not very clear, right? The lines are blurred because we tend to talk one thing and we tend to talk tough to one set of people. However, to another set of people, it is a different standard. Now, if we go to look at it from a leadership point of view, we would say that we are sending clear messages, right? But I am just bringing the point from a young person's perspective, right? That this is one of the reasons why they believe that they don't want anything to do with the church and they want to separate themselves because we have mixed messages.
Okay, Brother Kendall, you want to chime in here?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and happy Sabbath. I also will like to think that our messages are very blurred at times. I knew, let me put this in one time. I believe that this is the Church of God, but so too often we give mixed messages. And, there's a part of the youth's journey, especially when they reach young adult area, there are a lot of questions that they have, and where our lines become blurred and other representatives in church, we allow too many things of the world to creep into the church, right? And hereby the youths are comfortable and confused on which side should I go? Should I accept this? Should I go here, there? And if they are looking to us, for example, I would say sometimes the messages are very unclear. And that's what I would like to say for the while being, in rather not going to specifics at the moment. But sometimes, to be honest, we could be very blurred with our messages at the church.
Okay, anyone else would like to add to what was already said? Because Speaking from my Pathfinder's point of view, when they were asked a similar question, a lot of them spoke about the adults that say one thing and do something else, and it's totally confusing with them as to what they're really supposed to do. All right, I see Brother Gideon's mic is unmuted. So Brother Gideon, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. There are mixed messaging. As a matter of fact, all the research that has been done within the Seventh-day Church has shown that the perception, and I want to say that word, the perception of hypocrisy is what ranks very high in terms of church apostasy. If it's 1, 2, or 3, it's always among that kind of level in terms of why people leave the church. I want to say, however, that not every perception of hypocrisy is in fact hypocrisy. But there is a very high and strong perception of hypocrisy. For a young person, a lot of times, they see diplomacy as hypocrisy. What we call diplomacy, they see it as hypocrisy a lot of times. Because if somebody did something wrong, or what they perceive to be wrong, and the adults decide to negotiate through that, how you're going to treat with that wrongdoing, then there is a perception of, if it was one of us, they'd deal with us this way, they'd deal with us that way. And the diplomacy could be seen as hypocrisy. There is also, however, I think, where the biggest challenge is why there is such a high perception of hypocrisy is that we as adults have brought upon ourselves a unreal expectation of perfection, an unreal expectation of what this Christian journey is. And what we try to do is to model, and we do a poor job at it, but we try to model perfection as opposed for us to try to model and intentionally promote transformation. And if we could talk to young people about our own story and our own weaknesses and our own struggles and challenges, but how in Christ we were able to hold on, in Christ we were able to overcome, in Christ we wept and did what we have to do to stay. If we do that kind of thing, then when we do the wrong things, they would not see us as hypocrites. They will see us as humans on a journey. But when we stand on the pulpit and when we talk to them and when we have sessions with them, we present ourselves in this kind of second coming of Christ, and then we make mistakes, then they perceive our falling as hypocrisy. So what we have to do is we say it all the time, be real. But a lot of us as adults don't understand what that being real is. We still try to project ourselves as the one who have it all together, and we really do have struggles. And we have come to demonstrate to the rest of the population how Christianity ought to look like. And that is where we have problems.
Okay, I see, thank you. I see the Grahams, they have their hands up, and someone else. Okay, so you can go ahead, Aisha.
Good afternoon, everyone. What I just want to add to what Gideon said. Just add. I don't think we understand how keen of an eye people have. When you think that they don't see, they see, they hear, they know before you even tell them. And I've seen it with our own children, and when if we try to be as honest as possible, sometimes we are afraid to tell them how the relationship came to be. You know, we of course we want them to make right choices because they reach an age of wanting to have a relationship and whatnot. But if you be real about how yours came to be, because some people are afraid to say, well, you know what, I did this before, I did that before, and when we don't be real with them and you try to tell them, you know what, that is not the way to go, that is where the problem starts. You know, that is where they won't have that trust in you. So when we have our evangelistic series and we paint this pretty picture of everything is going to be great, this is where the young people in the background say, well, that is not how it is. This is not how things go. That is not how we're supposed to do things. So if we really and truly speak, and just reiterate what Gideon said, speak exactly what it is you have experienced, and if they see you on a journey, they will understand that everyone is still in a journey and has not reached that point of perfection. That's my point.
Also, I think really and truly is how you deal with them on the go. Even in correcting, you know, sometimes we run to the church manual and we use it in such a way that it demeanor to them. They see all those things. Reality is that this question being visual is the first thing that they see before you even have a conversation with them. So then therefore, how you relate, not even to them direct, might be to your children or might be to other adults, they would pick that up and you might put you on a scoreboard, and you know, and they wouldn't, certain things they wouldn't tell you, certain things they would do wrong, certain things they would not do wrong. Really and truly, in this time, we really do not have that visual standard that we need to have for the young people, right? Let's say right now we're in the age of social media, and really actually they have the ideas. I hope I'm not going off course. They have the ideas as to how the church could move forward in this time. But we I don't think we're giving them that opportunity. And whereas they see us as leaders expecting to give them the opportunity, expecting to usher in their era in, we still kind of fighting them down. Even in dress code, you see some of the leaders dressing like if they're 12-year-old, you know, our dress codes tend to change, and then we come with a program talking about how we should dress and how makeup and this and that. And we have ourselves tend to do the same thing from way up this scale.
I see Pastor Giovanni's hand is up as well. You can go ahead.
Last night I was having a conversation with another minister. We were looking at the same topic. How are the youth seeing the church? What came out was that there is the church as a brand or as an organization. So as an organization, the church's message is clear. They make it known. We have the manual, we have a number of policies that come out, we have policy guidelines, even the identity of the church, how we are supposed to make flyers, how your website is supposed to look. The church is very clear on the visual message that we are supposed to be portraying. When we look on social media, what we are seeing with most of the posters and the flyers are not the standard of the church, but the standard of the individual who is representing the church. And that is where the conflict comes into play. The discussion we had brought out that as a brand, we are representing Jesus Christ. And because we are representing Jesus Christ, we have to remember that the brand doesn't need us. The brand wants us. We need the brand. if you're an ambassador for, well, Biscrim is my thing. So Biscrim, at the end of the day, even though I might have an image and a stature and I'm seeing in society, the brand is still the brand. They chose me because my beliefs align to what the brand stands for. But at any point I deviate with it, they will quickly say, okay, thank you very much, have a nice day. They no longer cut a check. That is the issue that a number of the young people have. We have a number of elders and deacons and individuals who are brand ambassadors for the church, but their lifestyles are not aligning with the brand. Unfortunately, we as a brand are holding on to individuals who are misrepresenting the brand. We're not afraid to cut them off. But if the same youth, the individuals who are seeing these elders in a questionable position were to do the same thing, they're looking at the fact that, just as was expressed before, when the elders become more diplomatic about each other and more cutthroat about the youth, that is what hurts. If we look at it black and white, then visually the church's message is clear. But individuals who are sharing this message, they are skewing it. And remember, brands are very specific because you can't talk about KFC and put up the color blue. It have to be red. And if you represent B-Mobile, you have to wear green. You can't wear red in any of the ads or anywhere that a B-Mobile flag will be flown because it is you represent B-Mobile. You will lose the support of the brand. But we hold on to the inaccuracies and the faulty ways of the adults in the church, the current brand ambassadors. And in trying to train the youths, they don't know who to listen to, whether it's the actual church or the people. Because youths don't fall out with the church as in the organization, they fall out with people. Because at the end of the day, the person who is going to talk to them about the discipline and all of that are the people. So as individuals, the visual message, it's a back and forth. And for young people in this generation, they would just say, all right, I will leave you there to beat up with yourself. You do you. When you make up your mind, then I could come church. When I see you looking a bit consistent, sure. I am looking at it from the more professional standpoint, the branding part. Yeah.
I want to jump in here a little bit because I want to respond to something that Giovanni, well, not respond actually, because I agree with totally with what he says, but just maybe add some butter on the 2 slices that he put. And that is, we have difficulty because he used the brand, and I like how he used the analogy in terms of we have to represent the brand. But I want us to be conscious that there is a more than slight differentiation between the church and the church organized. So there are people that listen to the organization of the church and the structure of the church and call that the church. There is a difference between the church and the church organized. And the church organized is the brand. And it's important that you represent that brand. However, the church has an objective, which is to seek and to save that which was lost. And therefore, the church has a more compassionate posture, but the brand has to be maintained. And that is where we have a lot of problems. How do we blend the salvific components of the church into the brand that has to be maintained. And sometimes we have problems in terms of treating of both of them. I don't want to get into that, but I just wanted to add that butter onto the bread, the very good bread that Elder Giovanni would have put there.
Yes, very, very good. Brother Kendall, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I totally agree with Brother Gideon and Pastor Giuliani. Yes. These are some points that I really heard some of the youths mentioning, and somewhat. Yeah, and you know, when the youths mention the church, and you will hear this frequent statement, it's not really the church in general. Of course, this is God's church, and we have a specific message, and this message can't change, and it won't change, right? But when the youths mention the church, they look at certain individuals that hold positions in the church and supposed to be leaders, right? So, you know, even as we speak about dress, you know, we will talk about dress reform and how we should dress. But when we reach in social events or something like that, and you look at some of the leaders or the leadership summit, right, you have problems and mixed messages and like, okay, we're speaking about dress here, but sister this, brother that, why is he looking like the world, right? And remember from the get-go, it's the world that is pulling our youths outside. And if we are appearing somewhat close as the world, we are having a great problem, right? Even in the music that we listen, where I am, I observed we had a car wash, Pathfinder car wash, and it was kind of difficult to differentiate between, okay, what music are they listening to, because they had music going on, you know, making the thing interested and stuff, and we were having problems differentiating, is this Christian music they are listening to? And if we having that problems, then somewhat there are gray lines in between. We need to be either white or black. And of course, you know, the leaders would be part of this organizing, right? Even we look at the food, we talk about healthy living and stuff like this. And again, when we have get-togethers and things, they look at what we are consuming, how gluttonous we are as leaders, what the things that we do. You know, we order a bucket of KFC and this and that, and these simple things that seem simple, the youths are speaking about it, and we will have little sessions with the youths, and we'll have them relax, and they're hearing these things coming out. They're observant, right? Even movies, we speak about going cinemas. We don't go to cinema, but many of us, we have cinema in our homes. The same movie that we refuse to watch in the cinema, we are having it in our homes. And I'm speaking literally, these are things that are discussed and observed for my own self. So it is my experience as well, right? And, you know, even caring for others, it make mention, sometimes we operate just as the world, and the world is pulling the youth. So we are having a lot of mixed messages in visual messages. Sometimes it's very, very gray, and we have to take stock of this as leaders. I'm speaking to myself first, because at times I'm guilty as well.
Okay, anyone else would like to add to that, or can we move on to question 3? Before we move on though,
yeah, I don't want to add, but
okay.
I know that, well, I suppose it's questions that have been posed. And if we have an idea of how many there are, we will know how to tailor our responses. You know, or is it that when time passes, wherever we reach, we stop? Because a lot of these things, the responses could go a lot deeper, but I know there are many panelists, and there are other questions. So we kind of like trying to temper how much you say, that kind of thing. But I'm just looking for some guidance from the moderator, I suppose, so that we know how to respond in terms of questions posed.
Yes, I know it's a lot to say. And actually, when we came up with doing this series, it was because of some issues from our own youths, our own MITs and Pathfinders that brought about this series. And I'm thinking now that 3 parts may not be enough because of all the information that we have coming out. However, last week we had some young people and a few adults, and we wanted to get their take on this topic. This week we deliberately asked some AY leaders and stuff to get the leaders aspects of it, right? And I am agreeing with Brother Gideon. Even though my MITs are on, I think we need to go broader with it. So maybe we will continue it. But before we go on to the third question, let me just take a minute to welcome Pastor Kujo and some of his members from Way of Life Ministries. It's always a pleasure to have you on with us, and we welcome you. So this leads us to question 3, which is the ultimate question. And for the 3 weeks of this program, this question will be asked. We now want to hear your take on it. And question 3, MIT Mary, is why do you think youths are leaving the church? And we would like every one of you to give a short idea of your thoughts. We want to hear everybody's thoughts on this particular question. I see Brother Radix, hand is up.
All right, so I will go first. And, we're talking a lot about the church and double standards in the church. But I just want to take a different, because the church is made up of individuals, as was stated. And many of those individuals are parents and guardians. And the home, for me, has a lot of responsibility with this, in this regard. Our parenting style, the double standards as parents. So I'm not talking about us necessarily as church leaders, but as parents. You have some homes where you have a certain amount of abuse, in the sense that we have a pious attitude in church, but when we home, it's the language that we use when we relate to each other, to the children and that kind of thing. It causes that dissonance in the minds of young people. If it is you are representing Christ, and this is sort of the language that you're using, this is the way you relate to us as children, then do I really want to be a part of, do I want to serve this God that you represent? All right, so that sort of hypocritical abuse that we may find in homes at times. And then you have, in some homes, you have the church sort of critical homes. So you may have some parents who, they may never leave the church, or they don't have that intention ever to leave the church. But the way they talk about the church and the leaders, sometimes on Sabbath, they have the pastor or the elder or the superintendent for lunch. And so, I've seen where, I visited a home once. And so this parent was concerned that their children had stopped coming, and they were concerned. And when I went and I was talking to the young people, and they knew everything that was going on. They weren't coming to church, but they knew everything that was going on in the church. All of the persons they felt would have wronged their parents, and what is being said, and all of these sort of negative things. so that a lot of things that what do we take home from church? Do we take home the positives, the messages we heard about Christ, or do we take home what the superintendent was wearing? And those things impact on the mind of young people, because as an adult, you may never have the intention of leaving, but you may plant that seed in that young person that says that, do I really want to be a part of this organization? And then there are those parents who may become very militant in a sense, and I use the word loosely, around the Sabbath and Sabbath keeping. So that, throughout the week we okay, but then when it comes to the Sabbath time, we could get very, trying to protect the fringes of the Sabbath. We could, long ago there was this cartoon, Mr. Wheeler, he would transform when he got into the car. And sometimes for some of us parents, we could transform on the Sabbath and suck the joy out of the Sabbath in a sense because of our attitude around the Sabbath. So not taking the time to ensure that we create that joy, because if there isn't any joy in it for the young people in our homes, then why would they want to stay within this faith if they're not enjoying it? And so we have to take, I think as parents, we have to take a lot of responsibility for our young people leaving the church. Thank you.
Okay, you can go ahead, Sister Usha.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Once upon a time, I thought as a leader that I needed to entertain young people in order to keep them. So my programs would be, while it might be educational and uplifting, I always wanted to have an element of fun, because I felt like in order to keep young people, they need to be entertained. But over the years, my opinion about that has changed through experience. And that is, when I joined the church, and I'll give a personal testimony, it wasn't because of Jesus. It was because me starting to go to church at a young age, 10, 11, and I formed friendships with people in the church. And so why do I think young people are leaving the church? I think that a relationship is missing. I think a relationship is missing with self, with God, and with people within the church. Meaning that if you understand you, and you understand yourself, and you understand what the world out there has, then you would not be easily distracted by what is out there, because you have a strong sense of self. When you have a relationship with God, come what may, whatever happens within the church, with leadership, with whatever, you're not going anywhere, because you have a relationship with God. But before you reach there, my experience was when I was younger, before I even got baptized, it was relationship with members, with the church family, that kept me there until I found Jesus. And in Sabbath school, they usually say that if someone comes into your church and they do not form a friendship within the first 6 months of being there, they would leave. And so we have our young people there, and they may come and they may be present physically, but without that relationship with self, with persons within the church, with that family unit, with God, no matter how entertaining your programming is, they will leave. And so we have to go back to the basics of helping our young people to, one, find themselves, to build a relationship with others within the church. Because when you look at culture and you look at other churches, the churches that has a family unit, a good relationship with each other, you find young people less likely leaving than churches that is distant. They are strangers in a building. And also you can find that when difficult times hit and family is not there and church family is not there, it is your relationship with God that keeps you grounded. And so I would say, why do you think young people are leaving the church? It stems from the foundation of relationship. Relationship with self, relationship with the church family, and relationship with God. That is missing.
Amen. Well said. Sister Kafian?
Hi, good afternoon. I honestly believe that there has been a wave whereby where young people, the youth, feel that what is religion is not necessarily an ideology of spirituality. So there's a separation between the two. And what you can tell about any person is that they look up to others in terms of mentorship and so forth. And I hear in my church all the time that the youths feel over and over again that they cannot share, they cannot talk without judgment. And because they feel as though the older heads are not in terms of being vulnerable, expressing that, I too went through this, things are so hidden, not knowing that sometimes your testimony of your challenges and your problems or things that your journey in life actually speaks volume to people than always saying this is right and this is wrong and so forth. So I think that youths, especially when I look at my district, they leave the church because they don't feel as though they're fitting in. They feel judged. Usha said something there that, it takes a lot of self-development and relationship with God to get past that point. But remember that in this world, we have everybody so busy. The family structure has changed dynamically, whereby sometimes you don't spend enough time at home worshiping or formulating relationships, communicating. Yes, there are AYs and there are programs and so forth, but there is a major disconnect in terms of feeling at home. And we also, I think we are a cliquey people, right? And sometimes trying to be a newcomer coming in, it's a little bit difficult in terms of people may be nice immediately, like, hi, how are you? And, you might get a little talk for 2 or 3 weeks, but becoming part of. So I think it's, you have to look at it from the both sides of the coin, whereby each of us individually have to become better at helping the youth, making others feel welcome, practicing back things like mentorship. I remember I spent so many times, we have pizza night, we have this things that are inclusive, not because it is something that the youth plan. You have to become invested. You have to give of self. You have to become a kind of a serving brand, so to speak. And I think we have moved away from that idea of service. So young people feel always left out. They see 1 or 2 people trying with them, but it's not a collective effort. It's not collective. Because there's more a disparity. I guess because things are evolving, things are changing over time, and we don't understand that it doesn't mean, and I go back to what I said, it doesn't mean that principles have to change, but methods may have to change. And we saw that, and I mentioned that last time we were here, that we saw that everybody, when COVID-19 hit, everybody went online. And you have so many programs online. Things just started buzzing and happening, things that people were in arms about before. So I'm saying, that we need to really focus on what is important. And also youth are heavily involved in understanding life skills, right? I always say Jesus went about preaching in parables because that is what the people could have identified with. We may need to think about how we can reach youths to keep their retention based on what is best for them, not necessarily always what we know. That's why you have to research. That is why you have to reevaluate. So I think there's a need for us to reevaluate our methods because youth they're just not having it. You can't say this and mean that. They're at that point where they're asking who, what, why. They're not just taking things. Back in the day, my mother says, sit down. I sit down. I don't want to know why I need to sit down because there's that trust being built. And because we're not, the family structure has broken down with that trust. And the church structure even has broken down where they don't feel as though it's a safe place, right? Where they can share their burdens and share their challenges. These are the reasons why the youth are drifting away. And they don't drift away immediately, it happens by a process. And because we're so sometimes program driven, we fail to recognize that this is happening. There are signs, there are telltale signs. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Sister Kafian. I saw the Grahams had their hand up, and then we'll take Sister Karen after the Grahams.
Okay, so I want to speak on club point of view and from our neck of the woods, right? We're from Central, Pioneer SDA, and we're speaking from that aspect. I don't know how it relates to other clubs, but we're speaking on our end. Now, what I believe, well, one aspect, because we have many, one aspect is there are programs really geared towards you. So there's Adventurer, Pathfinder, Master Guide. And a lot of times, so from Master Guide, they come a little more independent, but with the Adventurer and the Pathfinder, you have a more parent-child aspect, more involvement, right? The parents need to be there for Adventurer. The parents need to bring the children to Pathfinder meetings, that kind of thing. And what I'm seeing is if the parents, if you have meetings on a Sabbath afternoon or if you have it on a Sunday, the parents have to get up and go or take, and they see that exhaustion of being there for the meeting or completing activities or even sitting with them. And when that loss is there, they lose interest in the activity, and the leaders will have to be pushing more. And it makes it a little harder because if we look at the entirety of the club curriculum, it is for youth. It is learning in every aspect of their life. You know, how to work with peers, how to love one another, how to take care of others, that kind of thing. And if we understand the holistic being of the individual, I think that when you allow them to be part of the programs in the church, no matter how, you will go up and do a sermon and you find they didn't say these words right or they didn't do this right. There is no right way because they are doing it from their heart. They, as a young person, is doing the best that they can. And if you get yourself more active in their spiritual life, I believe that it will encourage them to want to love Jesus more and want to share it with others. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of young people, those who are not going the Adventist schools. I'm not talking bad about the Adventist school. What I'm saying is when you go to the public schools, I'm pretty sure majority of their friends don't even know they are Seventh-day Adventists. You know, and it's because of that you kind of not let them understand that I'm proud to be a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm proud to not do the wrong things. I'm proud to be a part of club. And it's such it's sad to know that parents are not seeing the relevance of club and what it helps in, just like Sabbath school, just like AY, it has its relevance, it has its purpose for being there and part of their life. So youth leaving the church shows that our adults don't understand, and from our point of view, the relevance of uniform work. That's my contribution. Let's say it.
All right, so we're continuing. Okay, so there are various youth programs in the church. Yes, church is structured in such a way that even the young people have a place in the church. However, the driving force from the leadership and parents somewhat demeans that those programs. Unless the program have something that involves the adult, probably prophecy, or probably some sort of sister-wife program, then it seems to be important. In Pioneer, where we are from, we have that major problem of getting support, especially from leaders or from and you know, the funny thing about it, some of these adults have passed through the programs and they know exactly what it is about. But some of them had probably bad experience, and they expect that the same experience would go forward on their children, and not necessarily that way. I would have sourced leaders from all over Trinidad to try and assist in pushing club forward. And when that do happen and the leaders come, you know, you hear the parents or our leaders complaining, and you know, there's a lot of well, what I would say, we have a big change to make. Right, we have a very, very big change to make in order for this to work. Now, the question, why do young people leave the church? As I said earlier, every era of young people knows exactly what is necessary to carry the church forward. But we don't use them to do that. We see our young people talented in a specific field. We take them, we use them till they're weary. And then after a while, they just leave. Right? Why? And next way, why do they leave the church? We as leaders, until we decide to have personal relationship with them, then they would not stay. The youths that are leaving the church are not so much youths that don't have a connection with God, or not youths that don't have a clear understanding of what the church stands for. They do. And sometimes they don't leave the church to go elsewhere. What they do when they get a degree, they drown themselves in schoolwork or they drown themselves in a job. And we assume that they went the wrong road and then start to chastise them before we even try to really understand them. Youths need people that are there with them, as we would say, from foundation to finish. They, as a child, as teenagers, as young adults, even as adults, for those of us who would have passed through these phases with them, need to keep that friendship and consistency with them at all times. So if it is that this sort of friendship or sort of grooming or mentoring is not there, then therefore why are they there? Just to be used? It don't make sense. They want to know that they are part and parcel of the church moving forward, and not just to use for certain leaders to feel good or to look good. You understand? Because they have what it takes to go forward. Simple example. Over the course of the years, you would have had PAN in the church. You would have had social media in the church. We would have had tablet and all these things. And when those things, when the young people brought those things to the church, we shoot them down. Now, in a pandemic, we are forced to use these things. Now we're scrambling to get them to assist in pushing the church forward. When that is what they would have done all the time, if we had tried to understand and assist, and all we needed to do is just guide in terms of probably the theological part of it. So youths are leaving the church for simple reason as there's no love, and they don't see them as being important. And they are not leaving necessarily to be backsliding. Yes, there are those, but they're leaving because everything else more important to them. They wouldn't sacrifice their education. They wouldn't sacrifice their job time. They wouldn't sacrifice their outside friend time for no reason. So there's a lot of different aspects that we have to look at when it comes to young people leaving the church, because all who are leaving the church doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a connection with God, or they don't understand the truth that we have.
Yeah. Well said. Sister Karen, you can go ahead.
Okay, so basically everyone is saying the same thing. Youths are leaving the church because of relational issues, right? If I feel like I don't belong, it makes no sense I'm staying here. And we know our young people today, they are very clear and straight to the point, right? We tend to beat around the bush a little bit, but they are clear and straight to the point. If I cannot find something here that is of value, well, not that they don't find value within the church. However, they are not feeling valuable in themselves in the organization in which they belong to. So they tend to think, well, it's best I find somewhere else to spend my time and my energy. You know, so that's basically what the reason why youths are leaving the church. Now, as Usha would have pointed out earlier, at some point in time, you must have that spiritual maturity where you would think to yourself, no matter what happened, I'm not leaving. That is them. But that takes a while to get into that point, right? The average young person wants to feel needed. They want to feel, you know, included. They want to feel like, all right, my views are being heard. I am accepted here. So if we're not having that, then it makes no sense. As Pastor Giovanni said earlier on about when an 18-year-old leaves the church, it's basically a 12-year-old that just reached the age to leave. And that's a very touching point, because really and truly, some young people are just there waiting on the time when their parents cannot really say anything much to them that you have to, just not to. Because, and we are the fault, we are at fault here, because there may have been times they would have brought certain recommendations to the church as, you know, things that they would like. Now, as Brother Graham was saying earlier on, all they just need is a little direction as to how to, you know, mold it and shape it, the method, you know, and you know, we could make it workable. But instead of that, we just shoot it down totally altogether. So, you know, all these things, just have them there, just waiting on the time when you see I could just not be here at all, I would do that. We have to understand too that we need to show an invested interest in our young people. You can't just expect that our young people they come to church and they have to, you know, learn the doctrines, they have to do this and they have to conform to everything and just like a robot. We also have to show some interest in them. So this is where mentoring comes in. You know, we have to take them, you know, a young person showing some sort of, promise. They might be a little rough around the edges. Take them under your arm and help them out, and bring them to where God would have them to be. This is needed in our churches. We tend to see some young people struggling, but we don't want to deal with them because they're kind of difficult to deal with. So I really want to have nothing to do with that person, right? When really and truly, they're just crying out for attention, they just need somebody to be there with them and assist them and mold them and fashion them into the person that, they could be. I speaking about this, John Mark comes to mind, right? With Paul and Barnabas, and how Paul didn't want John Mark with him at one point in time, but Barnabas kept the interest, and he molded him and helped him to come to the person that he could have been. So we need to spend some time and interest in our young people, help them to become who they can be in Christ, and not just bring them down for the little mistakes that they make and the little rough edges that they have currently. Now, apart from that, sometimes we tend to think that we're doing good because we correct them and the child's so rude and this and that. But if we do not have a relationship with that child, how can we correct them? I heard Elder St. Bryce made a statement some time ago about if we do not have correction without relationship, just brings rebellion. If you do not have a relationship with somebody, you cannot try to correct me because you have no other interest in me. What you come in to tell me now. So we have to be spending that time, investing that time in our young people, letting them know that we are here for you, we care for you, we love you, and we want to see you achieve all that is possible. Simple as coming to AY. Many of our senior people do not come back to AY. If you're not coming back to AY, then you are no interest in the youth. Social, you're absent. Any youth event, you're absent. But when time to discipline, you're there most present. So, all these things are where we fail as adults in, forming proper relationship with our young people. If you see no interest in AY, see no interest in our social activities, then I see no interest in what you do in Sabbath morning. I see no interest in what you're telling me at any point in time otherwise, because you are not spending and investing time in me. Then another thing with the correction as well. The senior people have a way that says not what you say, but it's not what you say, but how you say it. We have to be mindful of how we say and do things. When I was a young person in church growing up, there was this senior lady. She was the welfare leader at the time. We used to laugh at her because she would tote around a set of bags to come to church. She would come to church with like 3-4 bags, and we would laugh at her. But she was very tactful in what she did. So if a young lady would come to church and she finds she was inappropriately dressed, she had a suit in one of them bags, and she would take her to the back of the church and she would give her 2 or 3 outfits, which means probably you don't have and you can't afford. So she would give her 2 or 3 outfits. Now, nobody had to know that. I was a recipient at some point in time, so I know, right? But nobody would know that she would have given you that. She would give you this and she would say, next week you will put on one of this and look nice. So, she didn't have to tell you, girl, why your skirt so short? All your young people don't know how to dress. That is not the way, how we just do it, No, she would make sure she would give it to you nicely and tell you, next week you'll put on one and you'll look real nice in it, like just your size. And she would fix you up nice, get a nice little sweet talk and send you on you. And that is the way it used to be. And I really appreciated her for that. I didn't grow up in an Adventist family. So when Sabbath reached and I would go to church, she would always ask, you have lunch home? She would invite me to lunch. Some other people would invite me to lunch as well, you know? So sometimes you have lunch offers back up for 3 weeks in advance, you know, because these are the ways that, you know, people used to form relationships back then. And I think that is what we are missing now. We need to start showing more interest in our young people. There are many young people who join our church who do not belong to our family. And we need to show this interest in them so that they now can feel like they belong, they can feel at home, and they can feel like, you know, regardless of what, I will weather it out because this is where I belong and these people really care for me. So as I said before, we have realized that we are failing when it comes to our relationship. So we need to start taking some time to work on our relationships. As Sister Kafian said before, if we see something is not working, change the package. If Bermuda's find a biscuit not selling, let us change the package. So we need to change our package and rebrand, you know, do something different to ensure that we retain our young people.
Yes, Sister Karen, I love those points. Reminds me of our own days in Erin when we had Brother Joe and Sister Jones, and we had our older folks with us at that time. And I tell my young people now, I am sorry that they are in this time when they don't have that what we had that benefit before. I see Pastor Giovanni's hand, I see Sister Usha, and I saw a statement in the chat that I would like if Brother if somebody can address it. Yes, I think it's Pastor Giovanni's head. Okay, you can go ahead.
Actually, what I had to say was along the lines of the statement in the chat. Ryan said, youth are not leaving the church. They are simply not engaging with an organization that refuses to engage with them. And I understand that. I understand that very well. When Sister Karen spoke about the youths that give a lot of trouble, that's me. I was forced to go to church. So grandma was Methodist, daddy was Church of God, mommy was Adventist. So wherever I am at that point in time is where I would go. So I grew up mostly by mommy, so I was in the Adventist church. The problem for me is that I saw 3 different standards of love, church love. So when I was living with mommy and I felt as if the church had a problem with me, I made up my mind that since I don't have a choice but go into church and mommy tell me I have to come to church, I am going to make every single elder and deacon and Sabbath school teacher, their life going to be a living hell, just like how they make mine on a Sabbath morning. I was that terror. I terrorized all of them. Eventually, they tried to put me in this program, Pathfinders, AY. They tried to make me do a set of things. And I still used to give trouble. That spiritual maturity that Ms. Ramlakan mentioned, it came early for me because I was privy to see all of that. The fact that I had to face the fire and I couldn't run. So instead of leaving church when I became of age, I realized that there were a couple young children who I related well with. And if I left, I knew they would leave. But some of them didn't have an option outside of church. So I stayed because of them. Eventually, I decided I'm going into ministry because if I'm going to set an example for them, I'm going to try to set the best example. Those same children gave me why they want to leave the church. Number one, they are being treated as an afterthought. They're never planned with but for, never asked to plan the program, but always being asked to clean up after the program. And as Sister Karen said, the very fact that they treat AY as substandard or a lesser part of the Sabbath is evidence of that. Number two, they're tired of being treated like an aesthetic or a hood ornament. You ask them to do something in church when it looks good, for children's program and Pathfinders Day and to take pictures. But on a regular Sabbath, you watch them to tell them, sit down and shut up. Basically, you treat them like how grandma used to treat the glass figurines in the house that you only take out to polish and clean every now and then you put them back, because the day something happened to that glass figurine, everybody have something to say. But after 2 weeks, the hype gone. I guess that's how we treat with the children. As soon as somebody get pregnant, it's a big hype. But after 2 weeks, we don't care about the figurine anymore. Number three, they were taken out of a social setting that stimulates them, and you place them in a church setting that restricts them. You can't tell me that I play football, I play netball, I coach netball, I represent Trinidad and Tobago, even as a Jamaican, on the world stage for netball. And when I come to church, I have to sit down and be quiet. I am running programs internationally and regionally on behalf of IOC. But when I see that the elders could cut down the lag time by shortening the introduction, and I say to them, and they vex, you're not stimulating me. And that brings me to point number 4, where Ms. Ramla can also express. They feel patronized. I was entertained in church. I was not engaged. It says that the church saw me, they know I'm there, but they have no vision for me. And that was huge, huge for me. Number 5, and this again, this is from the youths. Some of them just have personal excuses that they find easier to blame on the church. That's what they said. They said it's easier to point a finger at the church than to do the internal work. When it is home is under a little stress, it's easier to say, church giving me unnecessary problems. Let me deal with home. Let me deal with church. You know, you want me to spend time in church. That's time I could spend at work. I could make money and make a living. So sometimes it's internal problems that they don't address. And number 6, and this one hit me very hard Thursday night. I have a group where every Thursday we meet and we discuss. One of the individuals said to me, they just feel like a number. After they got baptized, the church didn't care about them. And that's why he left the church, and he ended up in YTC, and he ended up My Path, I think, is a program before that. And it was barely by the skin of his teeth he escaped going to jail. And he said, it's not much of a difference. In jail, they treat me like a number, and in church, they treat me like a number. At least in jail, I get in 3 square meals a day. Yeah. So those were the reasons that stood out to me. And as we have all been expressing, we know that we are at fault as adults because we don't listen. And the truth is, many adults fear the youth, what they're capable of, what they might or might not do when given the opportunity. And the fear comes from the fact that we do not understand. If we understood the youth, if we listen, if we even give them the opportunity, then things would be a lot easier. So those were the points that were discussed earlier with you.
I saw Sister Usha's hand.
Yeah.
Up.
Yes. We have good young people in our church. You know, we do have good young people in our church. Some of the reasons I think, in addition to what I said earlier, why young people leave the church is because sometimes our adults don't like to pass the baton. You know, And we need to recognize that we have young people, and when given the responsibility, we'll be amazed at how they will rise to the challenge. And so sometimes we need to take a chance with them or on them. And we need to let the older folks sit down and relax and support and be that role model and help them to be better at what they do. But we need to reach the point where older folks, we need to pass the baton over to them and allow them to be creative, allow them to get involved. When young people are involved and they have that sense of responsibility, you will be amazed at what they can do and the influence they will have with other young persons around them. We have to allow them to go through that learning curve. They would not do it as good as you, but allow them the opportunity to do it the way they do it. We have a problem with the way our young people dress, but compared to other parts of the world, our young people, they are good. They are good compared to other parts of the world. Other parts of the world, they may wear pants and jeans and jewelry to pick up song service, and the church full with young people. But in our little community here in Trinidad, we give our young people a hard time for a skirt that is above their knee, for a young man that have a tight shirt, for a young man that don't want to wear a tie, for a young man that only want to wear the loose tops, but not necessarily shirt, or for a young lady that, whatever it is, we find reasons to criticize our young people, and rather than accept them where they are, we want them to be where we are. And so we have to reach a point where we accept them where they are, and hopefully by spending time, by engaging, by building that rapport, by being kind, they may grow into what God expects them. But initially, we need to learn to accept our young people where they are. We need to get them involved by passing the baton, giving them responsibilities, and allowing them the opportunity to be fruitful and be engaging and be creative. Even now, when I'm asked to do something, I usually pause and I'm usually, can I do that? Should I say yes to that? And I might have to go to my people and be like, yeah, what? They asked me to do this. You think I could do that? At this stage in my life, in ministry, I still doubt my abilities and my capabilities. So imagine our young people when they're now coming into ministry, they're now getting their foot wet in ministry. We need to have a little confidence in our young people and give them the benefit of the doubt that they can do the work. When all else fails and the church does everything right, if young people want to leave the church, they would leave the church. Even if we do everything right. If they want to leave, they would leave. But at the same time, we can do what we think is necessary to help to keep them. So yeah, that's my contribution concerning, why do you think young youths are leaving the church? Because growing up within the Adventist culture, I remember I used to stumble and talk when I now started, and I used to be shy and I used to be nervous and I never wanted to accept to do anything. But it just requires one person to have that faith in you. It just requires that one person to say, Usha, you could do it. I believe in you. I know you can do it. And when you do it, even if it's not to the standard that it should be, there are people who still gives you that encouragement and that belief in yourself. And up to this day, I still need that support. Up to this day, and nobody would know that, because when you see me and you hear me talk, you're like, oh, that comes real natural to Usha. But I still need that encouragement. I still need that support even at this stage. So why do I think young people are leaving? Let us get them involved. Let us pass the baton. Let us not be so judgmental on them when they fall, when they make mistakes, or when they do things that you don't like. Because in other parts of the world, when you compare them, we have some pretty good young people in our church.
I saw Joel and Aisha's hand is up. But before we take them, I want to take Brother St. Bryce on this question in particular.
Yeah, well, let me go as quickly as I can, and I'll try to answer this question alone, right? Because I suspect there is one coming after that speaks to how we to keep them, or we answering all of that in the same question. So,
no, actually, don't have that question on how to keep them. We were saving that for our youth directors for next week.
Okay. All right. Yeah, all right. So why young people are leaving the church is the same reason why older people leave the church. Right? You know, we talk about young people leaving the church like if it's only they that leaving, right? The fact of the matter is older people are leaving too. It's just that young people are not afraid to say they're gone, and older people just pretend they're still there, right? But they're gone too. They are psychologically, they are emotionally out of that place. They are just pretending that they're present. But young people, when they left, they vote with their feet, right? When they're gone, they're gone. And they're not afraid to tell you that they're not wrong. So it's the same reason, and it has been reiterated. It is, we must belong even if we don't believe. And if you do not feel that you belong, then you will leave. Because even if you believe and you don't sense that you belong, you will still leave. So belonging in terms of maintaining your church presence, your emotional presence, and your physical presence has more to do with if you think that you belong as opposed to if you believe. All the research has shown that 70.5% of the people, 75.5% of those that have left the church, that have stopped fellowship, still believe in the Adventist doctrines. So the fact is they are not leaving because they don't believe, because there's something wrong with the doctrines. It is fundamentally why they do not feel like they belong. And a lot of the speakers have reiterated in multiple ways as to how people come to the conclusion that they do not belong. And so I would not want to spend time on reiterating all those reasons why they don't belong. But as we said, again, the research shows us, because I like to move away from opinions and feelings and what I think. And once I have data that is available, I like to use the data, right? And the data is telling us that it is the number one reason why people leave the church is because there is perceived hypocrisy. And that is internationally, including in Trinidad, all parts of the world, because of perceived hypocrisy. It is the, let me quote it for you, right? It is the highest in terms of the major reason, and it's the highest in terms of the minor reason. So when they talk about the major and minor reasons, it is the highest in terms of perceived hypocrisy. The next reason is, and we don't like to talk about this a lot, the next highest in terms of major reason is that of marital conflict. And a lot of times when there is marital conflict, people out of different reasons leave the church. They stop fellowshipping. And children are affected, young people are affected by that. And it is the second highest reason in terms of in the Seventh Adventist Church why people stop fellowshipping. And I want to make a differentiation between people stop fellowshipping, which we call leave the church, and people leaving God, right? Because I think Scafian would have brought all that point before. The young people now differentiate between spirituality and religion, right? And therefore they see themselves as maintaining a level of spirituality while not necessarily staying committed to a religion. And so don't think that when they say they are no longer committed to the Seventh Adventist Church and they stop fellowshipping means that they have left God. There is a correlation, but it is not one and the same thing for them, right? So we have to be very, very mindful of that. So what we need to do as adults is we have to learn to apologize. Young adults don't apologize. They don't apologize to young people. They don't say we are sorry. They don't say we made a mistake. They don't say, you know what, we overlooked that, and thanks for pointing it out to us. You know, we really didn't see that perspective. Now that you have shown it to us, okay, we will consider it. and those kind of, we don't apologize, right? So we like to pretend like if you point something out to us, then it's like, oh yeah, we saw that, yeah, we're working on that. You know, that kind of response as opposed to, I'm sorry. You know, we really thank you for pointing that out. We really didn't think about it. We are very sorry. That is on us, that is our bad, and we will fix that. We don't have that kind of disposition to young people. So if they don't belong, and now there's a lady that I worked with on a crusade. She came to church for about 3 weeks, and then after that I didn't see her. So the second week I went and I check out. I say, what happened? She said, nothing. You're all right? Yeah, I good. And of course, I can't give the whole conversation, but at the end of the conversation, you know, I gave the point so well. I didn't see her in church, you know. He said, no, nothing wrong with the people. Nobody do anything. Nothing wrong with doctrine, that kind of thing. So what? Well, I gone back by my old church. I said, so I am confused. Dissonance. If nothing wrong, why are you going back by your old church? She said to me, well, see, that's a small church. And she was a real live wire in that church. Somebody that the church really depended on. And she said to me, well, she went back there because that church need her. She have no issue with the doctrine. She have no issue with nobody in the Seventh-day Adventist church. It's just that small church need her. And we have failed to say to our young people, of course, they have different personalities. They have different gifts. They have different desires and so on. So how we say that to one young person is not necessarily the same way we say to all young people. And that is where the intergenerational connection comes in, where we get up and close, where we go to camp, where we can talk with them and find out who they are, where they are, what they're looking for. That's where Pathfinder, that's where what Aisha talk about pathfindering and so on. When you're inside there on the ground and romping and rolling and losing in the bush and all kind of thing with people, that's where you see who they are, that kind of thing. And that puts you in a position as an adult to respond to who the person is. And that is how they get this sense of belonging. You know what to give them. You know what to keep away from them. You know where to ask them to help and where to function and those kind of things, because you are learning them now. And if we do not get that, well, that camp is for them young people. Of course it's for young people, but school is for students. But you ever see a school with students alone? Anytime you go to a school with students alone, you take out your child from there. Because while school is for students, no student can learn without the teachers. No school can operate without the staff and so on. So while, yes, those things are for young people, it cannot work without the support staff. So all those camps and all those camporees and pathfinders and everything that is, of course, for young people, we as adults must get involved in it for it to work. Otherwise, it would not work. It can't work by young people alone. And therefore, what we need to do is to put some energy. I think it was Brother Radix that spoke about the lack of resources. Now, I could give you, I serve as assistant youth director and a director for a total of 22 years. So I could give you a lot of stories about how this thing does function and not function, right? But this is not the forum for that kind of discussion. I'm simply saying that we need to demonstrate to our young people that they are important. We are ready to spend the resources for them. Why you always have to put the air conditioner in the main auditorium before you put in the children's division? Why you always have to, you get a piano, you buy a new piano. Why don't put the new piano in the children's division? No, you take the old one and put the children's division and put the new one in the other thing. Why? Because we are not prepared to take the resources and say to the young people in a very tangible, visible way, you are important enough to us, so we're doing this. And when we start showing them that they belong, then they will start believing what we're telling them. Until then, they figure out mama dying. That's me.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I see Joel and Aisha. I also see Sister Wendy Samuel's hand is up. Hold on to your points, please. We are going to pause for an item of special music, and when we come back, we will take the Grahams, and then Sister Wendy.
Ever since I can remember, you've always been right there for me. And no matter what I was doing, you let me see how life should be. 'Cause you make it better by covering me, and you don't stop. When my way gets a little cloudy, and my nights gets a little rough, and no matter what's going on, you give me peace, you comfort me, you make it better, your love never leaves, and it don't stop, and you never change. And you stay the same. Lord, you do it for me. And your love is unrepeated every day with you, Lord. It gets sweeter, sweeter than the day before, and no matter how I might be feeling, I look to you, can't count on myself. You are the very present help, and you don't stop, and you never change. You stay the same. You do it for me, and your love is all I really need. Yeah, you keep on loving me, yeah, and you don't stop. You keep on proving, and I just love what you're doing, and you don't stop. You do it over and over again, and you don't stop.
Okay, thank you, Sister Elena Hospitalis. Okay, we go to the Grahams.
My point is going to be short. I think someone already said it. I'm trying to remember who made the point. But what I wanted for us to remember that our young people are very, very talented. Yes, so Usha was saying that we say we have good young people. I say we have talented young people. Very, very talented, and being able to utilize their or enhance their talents, whether it's spiritually or otherwise. It's just a proper guidance. It's just proper guidance. I think everybody was more or less saying the same thing. It's all about guidance, you know, and that's really the thing I want to enhance. We had a young person in our church who was very awesome in videography. Awesome in videography. And with the AV and editing and the full works. And we never used him. We end up taking somebody else and paying them to do the same work that he would have done for free at church. And he ended up slowly but surely, he ended up having his own studio. And now he's out there doing studio work for persons outside. And now, if they need to use him, is to pay him, right? I'm not saying that we don't pay our young people. What I'm saying is the talent is there that we could have utilized and enhanced. And that is why I think people go to other denominations, because they see their appreciation for music ministry, right? There is one particular, and I won't call the name because it's not my place to call the name, but there's one individual who was an active member of the church. Music ministry, beautiful voice and everything. Grow up seeing this person in church. Now that person is active in another denomination and saying that's their pastor and their church and their everything. And it hurts me because I grew up with this person and seeing this person who was an active member of our church. You understand? And it's sad that we have all our, and I spoke to one recently. They will do their thing. If they get called upon, they will do it, but it's not the same energy they will put into the church. And I think that us seeing the value of their talents and just allowing them to make it grow is where I think is why our young people are leaving, because they're not seeing their talents and utilizing it in the way it should be utilized. That's all I have to say.
I like that. Sister Wendy, I am seeing your hand up, and then we'll take Brother Kendall.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I think most people here know that I'm a champion for an advocate, not champion, advocate for young people. And I heard something, I think it's Sister Ram Kiloman. She said that they have good young people in the church. I want to tell you that all young people are good, eh? A little misguided, but all young people are good. I want to make a little point here about our church. When I say our church, I mean all of us here are Seventh-day Adventists, and we have the notion that we are a superior religion. So coming out of that superiority, because we have vital truth, we don't have all truth, but we have vital truth. So we feel through this, we have cliques coming out within the body of Christ. We have cliques, we have categories. So if we see the pastor, son or daughter misbehaving, we dare not correct the pastor's or the elder's child, because that's the pastor child or the elder child. Let me give you an experience about coming out of that. I started visiting a church some years ago. Just hold on 1 second, please. Let me just ask my husband to stop doing. Right, we're hearing that. Right, okay, thanks. So I visited a church years ago. I was in foster care. I was a foster care officer, and I visited this church. And I realized and I noticed, I observed that the pastor's son was out of control, and the mother is trying to subdue him, out of control. I don't think anybody corrected that young man. I don't think, well, I spoke to the parents about him. It's either the child was restless, not stimulated or something, but he was about 7 then. And then after, well, the pastor had my number. I don't know if when this goes on YouTube, he will know it's him, because I want him to know it's him. So after a couple of years, he would know it's him and say nothing wrong. After a couple of years, I'm in the country, and if he knows, it's no big thing, I line on the man. After a couple of years, I would meet him again. He came to our home and he asked me, he said, listen, I want you to do me a favor. My son is stealing. My son is stealing. Now, mind you, he stole in the church. They covered it up. But you can't go from point A to point B, but you meet up with somebody that will carry you down the loop. So I think he stole from the wrong person. And they carried him to court. And it was a pretty good sum of money. Not only did he steal money, but he stole their vehicle. At 16, he stole their vehicle. So I'm telling you about this pastor who is not humble. So he met me at the court. We spoke about it. I told him, listen, when you come to court, please, I beg you, do not say you're a Seventh-day Adventist pastor. I said, because the magistrate we go in before, she knows that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. So you don't say that. And don't come in no suit either, because that is not going to help your son. But I'm saying this to say that. Did we not realize, or did they not realize, that this boy was going down a path, nobody to correct him? But you know why they couldn't correct him? Because he was the pastor's son. I'm saying all young people are good, and it reflected those actions of this young man. He went to YTC. This young man went to YTC. I monitored him at YTC, and he excelled. This young man excelled. At present, he's in the Coast Guard. So I'm saying, with all those behaviors, the young man was a good guy. He was a good guy. We have to stop labeling in the church. Sometimes we have our young people falling out, and we love to label them. And the thing about it is that we, the adults, fall from grace too, Many times, I ain't lying to tell you, I used to go to parties, and who could drink and fet more than pastor's children? I used to hang with a pastor, 2 daughters, and who could drink and fet more, and ain't care. I still hiding and sneaking from my mom, but they did not care. I'm saying I'm still not judging that. I'm still not judging that, because they want to see, because, I went to junior sec, and there were, we had all sorts of music there. My point I'm making is, again, let's be observant. Let's treat people equally across the board, not because you're an elder's child or a pastor's child or a doctor's child or a teacher's child or whoever, that you feel that we can't speak to them. Speak to them. Speak to them. Like I said on this platform, the persons that I respect is God. And it takes me nothing to speak to anybody's child. Respect God. Let's not put people at different levels. Let's not put people at different levels. God don't do that, eh? God don't do that. Nobody's at a level. We all, when he looked down on us, we all here on earth scrambling here on earth to be what he wants us to be. So I'm saying again, please, let's not be judgmental. When we say we have good young people in the church, all young people good. All young people good. Innately they are good. All young people are very good. You will meet young men at YTC or wherever, and get to know these young men. They are very, very nice. They are very, very nice. Some people, their goodness, as some psychologists will say, comes out when you are locked up. But I'm saying, let's not be judgmental of our young people. When we see them going astray, why are we waiting for the decay? Why are we waiting? And we see it, Don't think we don't see it. We see it, but we are afraid. I wonder what the mother will say, or what the father will say. What does that have to do with you? What the mother say or what the father say? You go and you speak to that young man, or you speak to that young lady, because something, probably we don't take responsibility. But I have 2 Seventh-day Adventist young men in my charge. And something, I feel embarrassed for the churches that they came from. I feel so anytime a young person slips from our church family, we need to feel bad. We need to feel bad. You know why? Because we didn't do anything. Did we pick up this young person and carry them home and speak to them? Did we walk with them and ask them, listen, what do you want me to do? Did we show them the tools and how to live wisely? Did we do that? So let me don't bash them now. Don't bash them. Encourage them. And don't put our values on them. Only put God's values on them. You know, we like to have our own values. Who said that in the Bible? Who said some of the things we tell the young people? I ain't see it there. I am studying the Bible intentionally. And some of the things that they tell me, I ain't seen it there. I am not seeing it in there. So I'm saying, let's have an even keel. Treat all our young people with respect. Treat them with respect. You know, Dr. Eric Williams' daughter she behaved badly. Our first prime minister. You think that we or anybody could have spoken to her, but I know that there were ministers who used to say, she bad, Erica bad, she's this, she's that. You understand what I'm saying? And I applaud those young people, those people who spoke out on Erica. So I'm saying to you, sometimes we have to say it as it is. Sometimes it's fractures in the home, why the young people are behaving the way they do. Listen, when young people behave badly, it's a reflection of the home, eh? It's a reflection of the home. Let's be very clear. When young people behave in a particular way, it is a reflection of the home. We can mask it how we want it. It's a reflection of the home. So as we wrapping up this program, and I know Sister Curlin will go on to another series, let's be mindful of a young person that we see. Let's be mindful. And it's easy, you know. It's easy when how you approach them, you know. It's very easy to get our youth, you know. It's very easy because they are nice people. They are nice people. Nice people, all of them, each and every one of them. Some of them are a little misguided, but our young people are nice people. So I'm saying all young people are good. All. A little misguided, but good. They are good people. Christ didn't come and die for Brother Radic Salone or sister and Brother Joel or Keith, Brother Keith and Brother, you know, Sister Kathy. And Christ didn't come and die for them alone, you know. He came and he died for everybody, you know. He came and he died for everybody. So let's give them a chance. Let's give them a chance and let's not criticize them. You know, it's a thing that I abhor is when the young people, when the young girls get pregnant and we love to look down on them and what she pregnant. I wonder who it for. That's none of your business. You were not there, none of your business. The only thing you have to do is to nurture this young person. What do you need? Do you need baby clothes? What do you need? What do you need? Where can I help you? What can I do? You're getting a job to go to clinic. Are you going to clinic? You know, if they're not working, listen, I will take you on this month. I will help you this month. I do it, my husband and I will do it. I will take you on this month. You know, I can't give you a whole lot of money, but I could give you Brother Radix help a lot of people. I know that. I say talking your business, Brother Radix, but you know, I really don't care. Yes, he will, you know, we need to help them. We need to help them. So let's help them. Let's not just have this program and then we go home and we eat our gluten and we eat our beans and we eat our food and you know, we drink our cake and we drive in our high profile cars and we go to our jobs and we have these young people suffering and we do nothing. I started to quarrel now. So I think I will leave the forum now because I think my point was taken. I have spoken my truths, but let us treat young people with respect and love. That's what I'm saying. Let's treat them with respect and love. And another thing I want to say here, my husband and I went to the bank and this young man, his pants was falling down, all his underwear was showing. And my husband in the bank trying to restrain me, imagine that, trying to restrain me from not going to the young man. And you know, I didn't bother with him. I ain't bothered with him because I know how to speak to young people. I just went very kindly to the young man and I said, you want everybody in here to see your underwear? Nah, man. And I helped him pull it up. He said, I don't have a belt, you know. I said, wait a minute, you know, in jail? How you don't have a belt? I said, pull it up, man. It will hold. You know, after that young man came to me, all they need is a nice word. All they need is empathy, nice words. The way we speak to them, don't talk down to them. You have to sit down here and you have to go. No, no, no. Talk to them, meet them at the point where they are. Okay, thank you. I'm out of breath now. I'll drink some water.
Thank you, Sister Wendy. Brother Kendall, you can go ahead.
Yes, Sister Curleen. Before I go on, Sister Curleen, where were you hiding that young lady, that musical evangelist? Because apparently we had some music thing going on, and I haven't seen this young lady. But she did a
That's
very
a family thing. That's my cousin.
praise the Lord for her. Yeah, my 2 points will be well, I think we need to engage the young people in a lot of inspirational programs. It could be, sorry, I'll go into the next question. But anyhow, so I think some of the young people could be leaving the church because, you know, they don't have that spiritual relationship developed with God in a holistic way as well. And we could look at this in a very holistic way in terms of from the child's development, from in the womb straight up, because this is very, very broad, because there's not one contributor to the individual leaving the church, because I was younger as well, and you know, have been affected by a lot of different things. But I also realized that spiritual relationship with God, because at the end of the day, the young people who are listening on this platform here had to realize God didn't do us anything. Men may offend us in different ways in the church. God did not do us anything at all. You know, and sometimes the devil does develop his cunning devices that don't matter. It could be 25 persons in the church treat you well and 2 persons ill treat you, you leave. Right? We have to be fair across the board as well, I think, you know, and when that person who left meet you out, because I am experiencing it right now with certain individuals, and you talk to them on the outside, they will relate to you and say, yeah, because they don't want to love in that.
Kendall.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to disturb you, but I want to address the issue that you just raised, that when you say that God didn't do you anything, which might be true, but I wanted to address, so I'm putting it in there for you to address it one time, because based on people's understanding of God and based on sometimes what adults say to young people about God, they are not sure that God didn't do them something, you know. Because there are times where things happen in their lives where they are not sure that it is not God that doing that. So you need to address that, because there are times when, even as adults, they think that God is doing them something. So address that, because don't just say that and think that that is acceptable to everybody, because there are people that think that when bad things happen, it is God that is punishing them. It is something that God has withdrawn his spirit. God is purposely treating, allowing things to happen because of experiences in the past. That kind of thing.
True. Hence the reason why I emphasize as well on spiritual building, because if we look directly to that area, we'll be, you know, concentrating on having that individual in a holistic way, because different programs and whatever, into introducing that person to a personal relationship with God, because along the way you will be offended, right? Because just to share my experience, I go through a little poverty and stuff, and it was hard for me. At our church, a lot of people stretched out their hands and helped me. But there was a certain time in my life in young adults area there, you know, I had only 1 pound to go to church, and that devil with his cunning device, you know, he brought to me, and I started fed up wearing this 1 pound, you know. I started to think, you know, well, people might be watching me. I have other shirts in about 1 pound, you know, and then I started stealing one Sabbath and I stealing the other Sabbath. People were reaching out to me, especially my mom, you know, but that devil is a cunning man. he wants us to look on the negative aspect of things alone, right? Now, I'll come into the point here, you know, at that moment when I decided to go back to church, it was an All Year's night, you know, people were welcoming and really nice and stuff and thing. And when I came into the church, an elderly woman watched me and say, "Hey boy, don't go and sit down in the back, look for a seat in front." And honest to God, I was really looking to get a seat in front because I made up my mind and I say, here what? This had to be a change for the next year, you know? So I'm not oblivious to the fact that we do offend the young people, and it's a fact, and it will continue. It's a sad thing, you know, but our spiritual relationship must be developed with God, that character, you know, and we as I say, it's not one fix and one cap fit all, but that relationship we develop with the young people as well, mentorship, you know, in different areas as AY leaders, as other leaders in the church, and find out what is causing that ill to the young person, or what is the problem they are having, and nurture them to put them on that aspect of relationship with God. For when that time of offense come, they can withstand it, you know, because just another experience, you know, going on right now. A brother he recently came into the church, we welcome him. We have that, I don't want to be boastful, but in my observation, I think we have that kind of social connection at our church, you know, and he came in and, you know, we accepted him, and he himself verbalized that, you know, and then along the way, he was also offended by someone else, you know, and he tended to gravitate to one or two persons who offended him, and then he's on the verge of being out, where, you know, we're really trying to work with him coming in. So I'm saying that we have our work to do as leaders, you know, as parents. And I don't want to go into the next question as to come next week, but if we take the counsels of Sister White, even from child guidance to messages to young people, to, you know, all these books that will help us deal with that problem, because the devil is after the church. You know, we could curb the falling away of the youths and also the adults from the church.
Okay, thank you. To sum up just this question, and speaking about myself, I was one that was offended at the church. Something happened and I was put to sit down for a while. Nobody told me that I was. I just realized that certain people in the positions in the church weren't asking me to do things, and I did not know that I did anything that warranted me to sit down. It comes back to what Sister Wendy was saying about the home. And I have to thank God for the upbringing I had. I didn't take on anybody. I wasn't able to sing in Erin Church, but I was able to sing in other churches. I was still spreading the word of God. Nobody could stop me from doing that. We have to watch at home. Know the training you are giving your children. Apparently, we have lost family worship in some homes, right? You have to set a foundation for your children so that if something happens in the church, they wouldn't just walk out. That foundation would have been strong enough to keep them. I could have walked, and for a while, I didn't even attend church, my church. But I did not walk because I said to myself, you know what? I am in this relationship with God. It's not me and them in this relationship, it's me and God. And I am not about to lose my soul salvation because of some people at my church. So they didn't talk to me. That is okay. When I saw them on the road, I used to say, hi, brother, hi, sister. And if they didn't answer, that had nothing to do with me. That is between them and God. Keeping my relationship intact was very important. And for a lot of years, I was not allowed to do anything in my church. But the love for God was always there. And I said, even if I had stood up and he said, road and take a loudspeaker and sing, I would still do it. Other denominations asked me to come and sing, and I always prayed before I go, Lord, are you sending me there? If you are sending me there, give me the song that I am supposed to sing and what message I am supposed to tell. And I would go. I would go and I would give the message that the Lord gave me. From Hindu to Muslim and all, Catholic, Pentecostal, Baptist, all forms of Baptist. They invited me and I went with God. He gave me the message to go with and I went with it. So I'm encouraging other young people who are here, my own young people and all in Arian Church. Stay in the ship, because let me tell you something, it may be rocky. Stay in the ship. Your relationship with God will get you through whatever is happening with you. So I'm going to go off script a little bit and I want to take ask this last question. Going to put it to the AY leaders first. So, okay, so it's Kendall, Karen is here, Sister Usha is here. As leaders in your youth department, what challenges are you facing? And when they are finished answering that question, Kafian, I'd like you to answer that question from the singles ministry's point of view. The Grahams from clubs, when it is finished, I would like Brother St. Bryce, Pastor Giovanni, and Brother Radix, just in a short time, to give some advice to us who are leaders, AY leaders and club leaders, on how we can handle the challenges that we are facing. In Arian, we need support from our adults, especially at our evening programs. We really need that support from them. I must say though, I thank my parents of the clubs, the children in the Pathfinders and our MITs. I can get them to do things, they do it willingly, and our parents are there always supporting. But in a program like today, we need the support from our adults. That's our problem. So we will take Sister Kafia and then we'll go to the Grahams, to Karen and Sister Usha as we wrap up.
Okay. Colleen, I want to be clear on your question, right? Could you repeat it one more time for me? Colleen, could you just repeat your question clearly one more time?
Okay, as a single ministries leader, what challenges are you facing? I'm seeing a smile. Go.
Okay. All right. One of the greatest challenges is that we face is initial support. What do I mean by initial support? Sometimes when you're birthing something that is new, right? You're packaging it differently. Sometimes the persons who are above you, who probably may be in charge, may view things differently, and they may not support you wholeheartedly. So what happened to us is that we had a really supportive family life department. Our family life team was youth driven, but when it came to the holistic church, yes, there would be some measure of support, but we basically had to shoulder things for ourselves. And we shouldered things so much so for ourselves for a good bit of time that it then became, okay, this is good. You have to almost, it seemingly prove yourself. So I think that those are the challenges that we face, that instead of partnering with your youth, right, as they prove themselves, we sometimes say a blanket no, because you may not be able to wrap your mind around the concepts and ideas. Because the fact is, the truth is that if you're not current, if you're not updating your knowledge bank, you can things may catch you by surprise. Other challenges that we face, funding. I think someone was saying that, I think Brothers and Bryce was saying with the analogy of the piano, right? That you get last thoughts in terms of what you want. And if what you want, even no matter how much you have proven yourself in terms of what you're presenting or in terms of youth retention and keeping the youths engaged, you still get the dregs, right? And because you create what we call magic, or because our youths are resourceful, you create magic out of nothing, so to speak, for want of a better terminology. Everything is always looked at. They'll handle that. They're resilient. They'll do that. So those are the challenges in a nutshell. I think having faith and belief that what we can create, though it's packaged differently, should be, you're allowed to ask your questions. You're allowed to investigate. But sometimes you put together bulletproof proposals and it's just shut down. So those are our challenges, but we've grown past a lot of that. I think basically right now, the biggest challenges is finance, because we are building a beautiful edifice.
Okay, Sister Becky, you all can go ahead.
Okay. Our challenge is, the major challenge is being as important as the other programs of the church. Club is, to them, is a babysitting club. It's a babysitting place. So we don't want to see about the children right now. We can send them in club just to call them for the bits, or or just for it to do a quote unquote aspect. If you ask continuously, you'll actually be a part of the program. But they don't see it as an important phase in a young person's life. And that is our major issue right now in club. So right now we have our children, and the majority time it's community children who is most active than our very own children. The other parents see club as important because they know about Scout. And I know of an Adventist child parent who tell me, my children in club and Scouts, and you have Pathfinders, you have adventures, you have everything that has a holistic program. And our major issue is the church not seeing it as important as the midday service, as Sabbath school discussion, lesson review, and that kind of thing. So that's it. That's our issue, being as important as every other program that comes up in church. I remember before he speaks, sorry, I remember for a crusade in Central, youth had to beg for a segment, like legit beg for a segment in crusade. AY don't really be important during crusade. So being as important as any other program is our issue club.
Yeah, that's true. We club don't see club is not as important as other departments. To reiterate the part of the crusade.
Like I already laughing.
Almost every crusade we are faced with this issue. I remember, we had to sit down on our own table away from the tent to try and get people to come and encourage the children to be a part of the club. When we do decide to argue about it, you know, you get that. Anyway, that's a long story. Support, it is not really there. And there's still the battle between children ministries versus club versus AY, right? That's still very much an issue there. Funds, I wouldn't say funds so much, right?
You call it hush money.
Yeah, you could get funds, but that's just about it. So it basically will just be two persons running a whole Pathfinder club and Adventurer club, which is very hard.
Unrealistic.
Yes, unrealistic. Pastor Giovanni, he could attest to that because he and all I had beg, and you know, due to the distance and thing was a little troubling, but he also came and support. Among other persons from outside the church, we had also get support from. So that is probably our big issue. Not so much the children, as we say, not the youths, because they would love to be a part of the activities. It is geared for them. But the support in terms of parents really driving that aspect with them, it's difficult.
Okay, so we'll hear from the AY leader, Brother Kendall, and then we'll hear from our two regional leaders, Sister Karen first, and then Sister Usha. Brother Kendall, you can go ahead.
Okay. Some of the challenges that we are having right now. Yeah, sorry. Some of the challenges that we have right now, I think is more adult support. We need more adult support in the AY programs. We are having, but I'm seeing those that are always there, they are being exhausted, you know, and we need more participation of the adults, because you will see in the morning time divine service and everything swarm with members, adults, and in the afternoon, all the youths coming out. We have a lot of youths by us. All the youths coming out and few adults. And when those few adults don't come out for various reasons on any particular time, they are noticeable, right? So we need more involvement there. We need more active youth involvement. Even though we have the youths present, sometimes they are just making up numbers and they don't want to be actively involved. You know, I think, to my opinion, I think that we are doing a very good job in having the youths involved in programs. Our strong point is music, and they are very well involved in that area. But other areas, they are very reluctant to get engaged in, and we have only a specific. Yeah, we have only a specific group that is there. You could count them on your fingers. Once you call for prayer, they are there. For outreach missionary work in the fields, they are there. You know, to do something, preach, they are there. But the others who need to be involved, they are just present but not actively involved. So we are having a little challenge at that area too. We are also having a challenge with academics. More so when some of the youths get involved in furthering their education. That is it with evangelistic and church work. I want to say church work, well, church involvement, right? And you will not see them around. When they do come, they are not actively involved as well, you know, and we are having a little problems with that as well. And also we are observing that we are having a lack of cohesiveness in the peers, youth. You know, based on our experience, before, you know, technology really come out as as forceful as it is right now, we had a lot of cohesiveness between each other. We will actually call each other to come out on a Wednesday night service. I have had some of my peers don't even want to come out on a Wednesday night. Sometimes Friday night we have something, they don't want to come, but because we are interacting with each other and calling and think we will all come out. I'm not seeing this involvement between the peers right now. And simple thing, I will ask them, where is so who is and that person's supposed to be the friend, right? And they will be reluctant to say that, I don't know, we going to participate in this. You all come in? Yeah. So come in. I know, and then when they come together, they are all on their phones, So I think we need a little more cohesiveness between, the peers by us. And I think that is the challenges we are having right there.
Okay,
Yes,
so
you
I
can go
think
ahead,
I'm
Karen.
next. All right, so from a regional level, the challenges that we face, dissemination of information. Now, many times we would try as best as possible to send out information to the various district leaders, as well as AY leaders. However, when an event comes up, you would hear that, but we didn't know anything about that. So that's one of the major challenges that we face. Sometimes you genuinely may not have received the information, and that's all well and fine, but sometimes the AY leaders would have received the information, but they are not passing it on to the general AY society. So we would like moving forward that, that when AY leaders receive information, that they pass it on. Then there are some AY leaders that I may not have contact for. And so it would be nice that you all try to reach out if there are AY leaders here that have never had contact with me. It would be nice that you all try to reach out so that we can collaborate, we can exchange contact information so that when information is available, it can be passed on to you. Secondly, participation in conference activities. Well, I guess a major part of that would be because some persons may not have received information. Also, there is the notion that, well, we don't bound to take part or we don't bound to participate. But it's all good for our young people because you tend to hear, well, the church has nothing for me. The church don't have no activities, but there are a lot of activities and we just don't see persons participating. Certain districts are not participating. So we would really like that, if the information could be communicated effectively so that we would have much more participation at conference activities when it comes around. Another challenge that we will have faced within the South Advisory for quite a number of years is the forming of our youth districts. This has been an old song. For many years, we keep trying and trying and trying. Now, I know that there was a point in time that Cyprian was up and functioning. However, within recent times, I have totally lost contact with Cyprian as a district, as a youth district. The last thing I heard that elections were supposed to be in process. However, I haven't heard any word after that. And there are other districts within the South that have been very challenging to come together and be a part. So we must also take note that any conference program should be participated at that level. Participation is on a youth district level. So it is very important for us to form and have functioning youth districts. Right? That is also a way of getting the information across, because when we know that we have the various officers for the various departments, we can reach out to those persons and well, with the expectation that they would pass on the information to the local church. The word just slipped me. The local church officers. All right. So that's basically the major challenges that we face as an advisory. Funding to some extent, because if we are not having our districts up and running and functioning, then therefore there are no dues coming in. So the advisory therefore has little to no funding. So my hope is that at least Seperine would be up and functional. Although we are going through this pandemic, we see that most activities are taking place online. So for the time, we will just fall into the virtual setting until things get up and running again.
Okay, we'll take Sister Usha.
All right, good. For me, some of the challenges, number one is participation. At a leadership level, you find that there are persons within the region in leadership positions and they don't show up. They are there by name and by title and they don't show up. You will be calling meetings and they don't show up. There's a significant few, the regular few, the most popular ones, unquote, that are the most active and they continue to remain active. And so I feel like in placing persons in positions like these requires more than just wanting to be here. It requires you to be dedicated to the work that comes with it. And many times I don't see that level of commitment at this level. We don't see the participation. One of the reasons I came back into this position, because I served here more than 10 years ago, and I said, well, you know, I did my part for Central, time for me to retire, you know, and I decided to come back because I felt like I could have brought something back, and that didn't happen because COVID come and happened. And then we went into this virtual world. But one of the problems that I saw in the past before I came back was relationship. I saw that there was a disconnect between leadership and relationship with persons within the local churches. And I thought that when I was leading back then, that was one of my strong points, where you get into the churches, you meet the first elder, you meet the pastor, you meet the AY leader, and that is what caused that relationship, helped to add to programs, helped to sell your ideas. So I felt like that is what was missing in the past, and that is what I could have brought back to Central. But because of COVID again, every church closed. So for me, leadership is a major problem in Central. Participation is a second major problem, and support, because if you don't have a relationship, support would not be there. There's a disconnect. If you don't have a relationship, you wouldn't get the support. But when you have a relationship, you find Central could be on fire because of relationship. You have churches knowing each other from other churches. And so we don't have that right now. I can say that clear cut. We didn't have it before I came, and we don't have it now that I am there. And definitely that is a major factor. Relationship with other churches, leadership within the regional level, and participation. We have persons there but not participating, and we're in the virtual world, and there are some churches that are active, so we encourage the churches that are not so active to join on to other churches that are actively involved in the whole social media platform. But definitely there's a lot of work to get done, to do. And it starts with building relationship and persons recognizing that if you accept a role, you accept the responsibility that comes with it, and you need to make yourself present. You need to make yourself present. As simple as that may sound, that is the simple problem. Make yourself present. You call meetings and there are 5 persons, and the You know, a quorum, so you can't make a decision, you can only talk. You know, you're talking about ideas, but you can't make a decision because you can't move forward. And so your plans, your major plans and your excited plans and your vision for everything is on a halt because you can't take it forward, because it's just talk until it is voted upon, and you don't have a quorum to vote for it. So it goes back to everything that I was started saying: relationship itself, relationship with people, and relationship with God. That's my contribution.
Okay, wow. So we have heard the plight of our AY leaders and our club leaders and our regional leaders. Just before we take a little three short advice on how we can deal with our problems. I want to thank you all so much for being here, and I thank you all for staying on the Zoom, the congregation, and those on YouTube. I know that some of you are listening in your churches, you may have your own problems. So we ask you to take the advice that you are going to get now. Next week, Sabbath, we complete our series, and we will have some current youth directors from different conferences and some past youth directors being on. And I want to encourage our leaders here to come with your questions. This is the time to put your youth directors on the hot seat and ask them any questions that you would have had that you won't get answered. Also, you can also receive some advice from that conference level. So we go in this order: Brother St. Bryce, Pastor Giovanni, Brother Radix, to quickly give us some advice on how we can deal with our problems.
You're muted, Elder.
Right. Yes, thank you. Yes, let's see how quickly we can do this thing. Let me talk to advisory leaders first. I would advocate, my advice would be come together as the three leaders from the three regions. And my advice from where I sit from all my knowledge is to do some advocacy for a change of the system. It is something I have recommended. So I'm just telling you this, right? It's something I have recommended. It was not looked upon with favor, but I do think it is what is required, right? That is, we have a system right now that functions with the Constitution. So you cannot go contrary to the Constitution. What I'm thinking is required is a change and overhaul of the Constitution. That is how the advisories themselves are constructed and how they come into being. Right. You look at men's ministries, you look at women's ministries, you look at all the other ministries, except for the Lay Preachers Federation, none of them go through a democratic process in which the advisories are voted. We have a problem where the churches send people to vote people into advisory, where those people who are coming are novice themselves. They are not acquainted with the system. They don't know anybody. And so you end up with all kind of people end up on advisories. So you end up with good leaders, but the support staff really is what Usha is experiencing, right? There should be, yes, some involvement of the youth, because that's why it was written like that, where the youth are involved to some degree in the choosing, but there must be a greater say by some of the hierarchical leaders as to who ends up on that advisory. Otherwise, you will always end up with some kind of piscot kind of people end up on the advisories, because people who are putting them there are in themselves ignorant because of the process. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So one of the things that you need to do is advisory leaders come together, a few of you come together, discuss it among yourselves and become an advocacy body to get that altered in a way that it becomes more effective. Right? That's what I would say. In terms of on the church level, well, that one I'd probably say a little more thing. Getting people involved has to do more with what their passion is as opposed to what they are gifted in. And a number of times we choose people based on their gift. I may have a gift for something, but I don't have a passion for it. And there are times when I have a passion for something, but not necessarily gifted, but the passion will drive me to learn how to do it. And what we need to do is to have an eye out for what people have a passion in. And what we need to do is to ask people, what do you think needs to happen? What are you willing to do to make this happen? Where are you willing to make a contribution? And when we have that kind of discussion with people, then we could say, okay, we could incorporate them into doing that. We don't have to do everything. The church have 101 departments. If your church only have resources to do 90 of those 101, just do the 90. Forget the others. People try to pressure you into do all different kinds of things, but if your resources say 90 is what you could do the 90. Instead of trying to do 101 and then we cannot get it done. We end up frustrating each other and bungling over each other and so on. Do what your resources say you can do. And don't let nobody make you feel guilty about not doing the others, because that is what the resources you have. I want to say this, numbers are important, but do not use it as your measure and rod of success. Numbers are important. Do not use it, however, as your measure and rod of success. Know what you are trying to accomplish and who your target audience is and who your target is, and work with them. If your church has 12 young people, then 12 young people is your target. And while you will incorporate other people to meet the target, understand that that's your target. So don't let nobody tell you about your AY feeling because only 12 people come to AY. That is your target. So know who your target is and work with them. That is your number. And as I said, incorporate other people. And next thing is operate from your position of strength. Too many times we try to let people, we do SWOT analysis, and there's a weakness. So we're trying to fix the weakness. You cannot fix weakness without strength. So figure out what your strength is. This is what I can do. This is what we have. Operate from your position of strength. And when you operate from the position of strength, you will find that the weaknesses are getting filled because you are operating from your position of strength. This is what I am good at. This is what we are good at. This is what he, she, or they are good at. And work from your position of strength, and that will fill the voids. But if you start looking at your voids and start treating with the voids alone, then you will get frustrated. Know what you could do and work that. And I just want to, I have other things, but run out of time based on the thing. I just want to close with this story. Well, one to young people who's still on, let me tell you something. I think it was significant that Jesus did all that he had to do when he was a young person. When he was 33, Jesus was back in heaven. Right? I think he did that on purpose. So young people will know that in your youth, you could turn the world upside down. And right now we have a before Christ and after Christ because he came. As a young man, he did everything as a young man. And I'm saying to you this morning, tonight, whatever it is, whatever time it is, right? I'm saying to you, as a young person, Jesus went to church and all them leaders and them, a bunch of hypocrites and them planning to kill him, trying to set him up, dealing with the leaders of the day, the political leaders of the day, and combining with them to take him to court, to have people lie on him in court, perjury, so that he could get the death penalty. That is what was going on. But the scripture says to us that Jesus, on the Sabbath day, as his custom was, went into the synagogue and stood up for to read. He couldn't care about the hypocrites and all the rest of them who was planning. He knew what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. But he knew he was going to church. He not take them on. And I'm saying to you, as poor as the adults have been, as poor as the leaders have been, and as poor as lots of them will still be, you, as a young person, Jesus have demonstrated that is no excuse. Do what you have to do. He will deal with who he have to deal with. You do what you have to do. And I'm just encouraging you. And then to the leaders, I just want to say to you, this last note that I have here, that I lost the note now, so I'm maybe not supposed to say it, right? The fact of the matter is, however, I was going to say my story. Your adults, as leaders, I'm saying it very quickly. When I was asked to be an AY leader, not even an AY leader, AY officer at the age of 15, I had no plan to do nothing in church, although I grew up as a Seventh-day Adventist. I had no plan to do nothing in church. When the woman came to me after midday service and she said, listen, the Lord led me to ask for you to be a AY officer for next year. I said, which Lord tell you that? Not me. I not of that. She said, well, at least go home and pray about it. And I said, yes, let me go home and pray about it. I went home, I prayed. I didn't know how to treat with it. I put a yes or no thing in a piece of bottle, I shake it up. The Lord tell me yes. I say, he making jokes. I put it back and shake it up again. Right? I pull it out again, yes again. I say, what nonsense is this? So I decided, you know what? I can't go back. I don't want to lie. So I'm not going back and tell the lady nothing. So I decided I stay home. I even go back to AY because I don't want to tell her what answer I got. So I even bother to go back to AY. I thought I got away. 9 o'clock the night, I home watching TV. I hear a knock on my door. Bap, bap, bap. The woman come. She say, well, I see him come back to AY, so I come to hear what the Lord say. She pursued me because she knew what the Lord laid on her heart. And even though I was being stubborn, and even though I was trying to duck it, she pursued me. And I couldn't lie, so I ended up taking up the AY secretary position. And from there, my leadership just rose and rose and rose. I ended up spending 22 years as in the conference youth department. And I always stopped to think, what would have happened to me in youth leadership if she didn't come that night and knock and say, I come to hear what the Lord tell you. And I'm saying this to adults. Young people will seem to be disinterested, and they may be for different reasons. They might be fearful, they might be uncomfortable, they might, for different reasons, they might have a guilt, some guilt that they're feeling. Whatever the reason, I don't know, but there are reasons why they will be hesitant and resistant. Pursue them. If the Lord laid it on your heart to lead them, pursue them. Because your pursuit might be the difference between their salvation and their being lost. So pursue them. That's me. Thank you.
There's nothing I could really add to what Elder St. Bryce said. So for those of you who don't know, majority of what I have learned in youth ministry is from that gentleman. And what he is saying is a fact because I am a product of that. I could tell you it this way. When I came to Trinidad, I was coming from being extremely active in Jamaica. When I came here, I wasn't used for anything. It frustrated me because I have to keep busy. You know, if you don't get busy, you get in trouble. A couple of years went by. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna stop waiting on the church to do something. I learned sign language when I was younger. I started to teach children in church sign language and formed a little sign language group, eventually spread to the district. Eventually, Auntie Kitta Alexander said, come and teach it for Pathfinders. For years, anything, anywhere in Pathfinders, even fair, I was asked to teach that sign language. Sometimes I know it was Auntie Kitta tricking me to come out of my house because I don't want to do nothing else. I am an invested master guide. I am an AY leader. I am an invested AY leader. I'm an ordained deacon and an ordained elder. And none of these training were ever afforded to me by my very own church. None. But Jamaicans have a bad mind. And sometimes we as people need to stop going along this victimized role and complain and argue and pick up a bad mind. I am not here today to tell you that what you're going through or how you feel is not relevant or it is not genuine. I am asking you to choose how you react. Because my bad mind put me in a position to save one person's life. I thought I was done with ministry. One person's life brought me to this point last month where I am in Sangre Grande now, drove all the way up to Grand Riviere because one child decided that they're fed up of this life. And if it wasn't for all of those experiences and being rejected by my own church and being trodden and drawn through the mud for everything, if you didn't hear about my attitude, you hear about my temper. If you don't hear about my temper, you hear about my mouth. And that one child reminds me of me. So I did the exact same thing as Elder St. Bryce said. Pursue the child. I decided I would go. It's COVID. I drove. I sat down on my car. They sat down on the roof. They want to jump. And I sit down and I just start to talk strippiness. I just trouble them. And it was the relationship I had with the person. Something in my mind said, talk softer and softer and softer. Eventually the child said, I can't hear you. I'm coming closer so I could hear you. So I said, go inside and come down. They came down and we sat outside and talked until 2 a.m. in the morning. I couldn't go nowhere because of curfew. And that parent just left us outside talking, brought juice, brought water, you're okay, everything all right. But it's the fact that I pursued. To this day, I feel in ministry underutilized. I feel like a well-refined tool. I am probably a jackhammer and they're trying to use me to put a nail in a wall. That is how I feel. Underutilized, frustrated. But I am not going to stop. When Becky and Joel call me, I reach. When Erin call me, I come in. I live Macoya and Erin, and most of you could attest. If I have to come, Erin, just for 2 hours to have lunch with you, I am coming. So for the leaders, that is my message to you. Keep on going. Keep on going. They see quality in your effort. Not what you could do for them, not how much money you could do, not how much programs you put on, but when you call them and say, hey, you're alive, you're good. And you could hang up your phone after. But they will remember, you know, Sister Becky called me last week and asked me if I'm alive. This lady at TV tried to fight, and eventually they will come to you, so Sister Becky. And that begins a conversation. Be there, be present, and for the youths, get a bad mind. If you had to terrorize your elders, and I don't mean that in a negative way, terrorize your church. Let them know that you are present and that you want things to be better. Somebody will hear your voice, and somebody, like Sister Wendy, will help push your voice. It's just a bad mind. Heavens by any means necessary. Well, let me be careful with that statement. The goal is heaven. And we ought to have a bad mind where things seems to be working against us. So that's my contribution.
All right. Well, having the last word in a sense almost makes it easy because there's very little to be said after those two gentlemen. But as a first elder, I have a personal philosophy. I say to the young people, I don't like to say no. I try not to say no. And so I encourage young people to, if they have an idea, for instance, as a youth leader, to bring to the board, as a first, I encourage them to come to me, share your idea, let's discuss it, let's work it out. What possible questions could be asked, and let's go through a process where you could refine the idea and the thought, so that when it comes, it's better packaged. And one advice I could give is try to get a leader, one of the leaders, first elder, whoever it is, who could be a sort of passionate supporter. And that person may not always be the AY sponsor, but somebody on the board, one of the leaders who you can bounce your ideas off of, and who can be a supporter when that idea comes to the leadership level. And so in terms of that, if there's somebody there, and hopefully there is somebody that you could reach out to who you can have as an advocate in getting your suggestion, your proposal through, that would be helpful. And, there were a lot of issues around finance, support, communication, leadership. I think a lot of them was discussed. We can use the technology now whereby if we don't have, in terms of not being able to meet in person, how can we get the contacts, the WhatsApp information, whatever, and let's try to meet as much as possible virtually, bouncing ideas off each other. Don't depend on the pastor to bring information to the church. Sister Usha mentioned, try as much as possible, try to make direct contact with the relevant persons at the church, and be willing to think out of the box, be willing to be flexible with your ideas. There may not be the idea, the result may be good, but there may be different roads to get to that result. And so sort of be willing to be flexible in terms of how you get to the result. Somebody once said, in matters of principle, stand like a rock. In matters of taste, be willing to flow with the current. And so we have to be willing to be flexible to get things done at times. So, may God continue to keep us as we strive. It's a journey, and we have to keep pressing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What an evening. Thank you all very much for being here with us. And at this time, I just want to say, Father, we thank you for this opportunity to meet and to discuss. Father, we ask that you will cover everyone with the blood of Jesus. And as we go forward from here on out with our youth, help us to stand firm and to stand in the gap for our young people. It's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm going to leave you with what Kendall said. I've been hiding this young lady. So I'm going to leave you with some music.
Say to these things, there's still cancer, so much disease. What shall we say to these things? So
Amen.
Amen. Amen. We'd like to say thank you to Sister Elena Hospitalis and her brother on piano, Brother Michael Hospitalis. And we pray that God will continue to bless their ministry. So thank you all very much. This is the time you can unmute your mic and say goodbye.
Wonderful program.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
As because Leah was going on.
I was not leaning on it though. Bye. Bye. And see you all next week with your questions.
Okay, bye.